LCCs, and regionals lead the road to recovery. Our board director, Vicky Sokolowski, for stepping up and helping us with this webinar. What is the GMAA? The Greater Miami Aviation Association is a nonprofit organization established in 1927 by industry giants such as Glenn Curtis, Juan Tripp, Eddie Rickenbacker, to promote the interest of the aviation industry in South Florida. Their first goal was to establish an international airport in Miami, which they achieved a year later. Today, the GMAA is still the main advocacy group for its more than 300 member companies. Our other mission is to assist young aviators wishing to pursue careers in our industry. Over the past 15 years, we have expanded our activities, and we have granted over $750,000 in scholarships to students wishing to pursue a lifelong dream to become pilots, technician, flight controllers, and other related professions. But they're lacking the financial means. Each year, we're assisting at least 20 such university and technical college students with generous scholarships. We're very proud that many of the scholarships recipients are women, and we are eager to continue and and promote this trend. With us today are many students who are enrolled in such programs, and they want to hear from some of the veterans who have been there and done that. We're trying a new feature today, which is the donate button, which will enable you to make a tax deductible donation. Any amount is welcome and flows directly to our scholarship fund. I also want to recognize Eddie Wayman, our board director, and Connie Devine, our secretary, for their technical assistance, and to announce that the GMAA has embarked on a marketing campaign with R3 Aviation Marketing. So you may get a follow-up survey from Rebecca Longo. We have a very exciting upcoming webinar series in the next few months, dealing with segments such as MRO, business aviation, education and training, and international carriers, just to name a few. So follow us and get on our distribution list so you see some of the other interesting webinars that are coming. You know, this pandemic has really hit our industry very hard. In our last webinar, I called it From Boom to Zoom. People stopped flying, countries have their borders sealed. The only place you socialize anymore is on social media. E-commerce is king while shopping malls are dying. And our industry lost millions of direct and indirect jobs. Many of the people that were furloughed will never return to aviation. Amidst all this turmoil, one of the fastest recovering segments is the low-cost carriers and regional airlines industry. During this pandemic, myself as an example, took the time to go visit our national parks, which were relatively empty, instead of heading overseas. We flew domestically, we felt very safe, we enjoyed reasonable fares. Price-conscious travelers have started to get back to this mode of transportation, especially around the holidays. Spirit Airlines reported last year a drop of 59% versus 78% by United. So the airline is expecting that its recovery will be faster in this segment than of legacy carriers. Delta Airlines CEO said he was hoping to start turning profit in the second half of 2021. So we have an amazing panel today, which will enlighten us about where we are now and what are the challenges and opportunities they are facing, and what is a near-term future and what it looks like. Please feel free to visit our website and examine their impressive background and of the following panelists, which are Mr. Lester Sola. He's the Director and CEO of Miami International Airport and Miami-Dade Aviation Department. Ben Barrocas, he's IATA Country Manager for the US. Bill Cade, who is the Vice President of Technical Operations for JetBlue. PJ Kendall, Field Service Manager for Southwest Airlines. and Luciano Macagno, Managing Director for Latin America, Caribbean, and South Florida for Delta Airlines. Good day, gentlemen. I'd like to start with you, Ben, and ask you to share with our audience IATA's analysis about the current status of the aviation industry globally, with an emphasis on the LCC segment. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, hi, Aviv. You're right. It's been a very complicated year for aviation. It's the worst crisis that the industry has faced so far. However, to you students out there and those wanting to get into the industry, I can tell you that this industry is resilient and we will get out of this. The industry is the economic engine and GDP growth engine for global economies, local, regional, and global. So keep him flying. My son's a pilot and he still flies every other day. So be optimistic of the future. Can you see my screen? Okay, I'm going to walk you through what we've seen so far as an industry and then take it down to the regional level, North America. And when I speak about North America, it's strictly about, it includes both the US and also Canada. So as you can see, what I'm showing you here is the number of flights year over year. And the industry basically fell off a cliff beginning in April when the borders all shut down due to the pandemic. The dotted line that you're seeing, the dotted blue line, is North America. Again, it includes the US and Canada. And basically, we fell roughly about 70% year over year at the onset of the pandemic. We ended the year a little slightly lower than 2019 flight levels. We're only down right now, only 40%, but that's still a significant drop. Now, unlike the passenger side of the business, the cargo side is actually doing okay and quite well. That's basically because 55% on average of all cargo is flown on passenger aircraft. So because of the capacity constraints, we're actually seeing cargo yields increase by over 60%. And the challenge that the cargo industry and cargo overall has now is getting the industry and the world out of this pandemic by shipping the vaccine and highly needed medical supplies via cargo. We estimated that it's going to take about 700 747s to ship the vaccine, which currently don't exist. So you can understand what the challenges are in the cargo sector. You were right, Aviv. You mentioned before the domestic flying. The domestic recovery is a lot stronger, and it's taking a lot of passengers on the domestic side, particularly for countries that have strong domestic traffic, the US, Canada, Brazil, China. It's the international side that's really struggling right now because of the border closures, particularly in Europe. Now, despite the fact that there are encouraging news regarding the vaccine, consumers are still cautious about flying. We took a sample of Google Flights, Kayak, and Skyscanner, and we had some pretty good demand beginning for the summer pattern in July and August. But then what we've noticed is that that demand is starting to taper off, particularly in November, December, as we start to see more quarantines and more border closures take effect. The industry right now is really basically on a lifeline that's coming from government aid. Globally, there's been 197 billion in government aid to help the airlines. Primarily, that's coming from North America, the US government. 27% of that global aid, 197 billion, is coming from the US government. Both Corona Relief Acts, and a lot of that aid is in direct loans or cash, loan guarantees, a reduction in corporate taxes, ticket taxes, and also fuel taxes. Now, The challenge for the industry is that that debt has to be repaid. So it's not free. If you'll notice, the debt on the far left side in 2019 was 430 billion. It's now increased to over 651 billion. So in a sense, the airlines are going to enter 2021 with a higher debt level, thus turning cash positive. To repay that debt is going to be absolutely necessary. So why is government doing this? Basically because, as I said before, the industry is the economic engine for the region and for the globe. GDP represents is about $460 billion in GDP that North America represents in the air transportation sector, and roughly 3.3 million jobs in North America. Before the second CARES Act came out, the US alone lost roughly 90,000 jobs in aviation due to the pandemic. Going back to North America and the number of flights and what we're seeing so far at the beginning of the year, flights are down in North America by roughly 37%, which is what we're seeing on the global side as well. And according to the DOT, airlines are carrying 61% fewer passengers than we did or they did in 2019. So the demand has still contracted by roughly about 60%. A lot of that has to do because even domestically, you have quarantines in some states and you don't have quarantines in other states. So for example, if I wanted to fly to New York, I'd have to be COVID tested before and after. So that's putting a big burden on the industry right now. In terms of how that breaks up for domestic and international, for the beginning of the year, we're still seeing some better demand in domestic, but on the international side, it's really dropped off a lot because of the testing requirements, border closures, and again, quarantine requirements. Regarding the forecast, what we're forecasting, and we've already seen that the airlines have lost or have burned in the second quarter irroughly $50 billion in cash. That burn is starting to dissipate somewhat. It's burned about 45 billion in the third quarter, a little less in the fourth quarter. And what we're forecasting is that it will stop burning cash, the industry, by fourth quarter of this year. That obviously depends on the vaccination process, how fast we get these vaccines out, how quickly borders open, and the quarantines are lifted. Thanks again, Aviv. Back to you. Aviv, you're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Connie muted me as well. Thank you, Ben. Great presentation. And now I want to turn our attention. We are very, very fortunate to have with us Mr. Lester Sola, who's, like I mentioned before, the CEO of Miami International Airport. There have been a few encouraging business announcements by the airport that are relevant to our topic today, which I would ask Lester to address. Lester, please.
He's not on, Aviv.
Well,
I'm having trouble. It's telling me that the host has disabled my video. But
okay, we can hear you, Lester.
Yeah, Aviv. So let me take an opportunity first and foremost to thank you for putting this together. This is very important, not just to those that are participating here, but to everyone that is. Oh, I think I'm back on. Thank you.
You're on.
So it's whether you're young or mature and you're in this industry, we have a lot to offer with regards to aviation And it's not just, you know, the economic engine for Miami-Dade County or the Tri-County area. It's like IATA says, basically it's a world economic driver. So for us to have the opportunity to speak on this panel, to speak about what is going on at MIA, what is going on with the industry here locally is very important. And as well as your panel members, we have some new carriers that have joined and are now calling on MIA. Very, very happy. The fact that Southwest and JetBlue, airlines that we have been pursuing for decades to come to Miami, have finally made those announcements. And it's no secret. They see an opportunity in the market. And I know a lot of our flights nowadays, 70% of it is domestic travel, 30% international, when historically we've been almost a 50-50 airport, 50% international, 50% domestic. So we recognize that there is, even during this process of getting out of this pandemic, this recovery period, there are new opportunities for some of these carriers. But we also have our legacy carriers, right? Delta Airlines, you know, my good friend Luciano who's on this call as well. We recognize the importance that the low-cost carriers or the regional carriers or the legacy carriers play in this economy. So we're certainly happy that MIA continues to be a host, not just to our legacy carriers, but also to those new airlines that are calling this place home. So thank you.
Thank you, Lester. And it's a good segue for us to talk to the airlines themselves. And, you know, starting with PJ, could you give us a short overview of the evolution of your airline, Southwest, until 2020? We recognize that from 2020 on, things have changed, but until 2020, PJ.
Mute too. Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So actually this year's going to be our 50th anniversary. So to try to put 50 years into a little bit of time is kind of hard, but I'll try to do the best I can, make it brief. So obviously over 50 years ago, Roland King and Herb Kelleher were basically sitting at a bar. This is kind of one of my favorite stories, and decided they wanted to start a low-cost airline and make sure that their customers had a good time, you know, during the transit time. So they actually drew out on a cocktail napkin what this was going to look like. And it was pretty much a triangle between Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. So in 1967, Air Southwest was incorporated. So from then on, we had to apply for with the Texas Aeronautics Commission for our certificate to operate, which after they voted unanimously to give it to us, shortly thereafter, Braniff, Transit Texas or Trans Texas and Continental Airlines actually filed a restraining order in order to prohibit them from giving us that certificate. So for the next 3 years or so, Herb Kelleher and, you know, the company basically battled. It was a long fight, and I know Ben had talked about resiliency, and this is very important in our airline, is that, you know, we're very resilient, dedicated, and determined. We ended up flying our first flight on June 18th, 1971. We had 3 planes, 3 Boeing 737s that Boeing actually held 90% of the financing on. And we started service to Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston, basically flying the Texas Triangle. So now 50 years later, we're still going strong here. And we now have a fleet of 750 planes. Actually, I think we've added a couple more to our fleet since we have taken, I believe, 3 more MAXs in so far this year. So currently have 506 700s, 207 800s, and I believe it's going to be about 37 MAXs, which will be, you know, operating here the next couple months, and those will be entered back into service. So we operate to 103 cities and 10 additional countries. So we've come a long way, and you know, we've fought a lot of battles, and this pandemic is definitely causing a battle. But you know, Herb Kelleher, you know, put that resilient attitude in us, and we're going to keep ticking strong and making sure we get through this thing on the upside of it.
Thanks, PJ. Bill, same question about JetBlue. You gotta unmute yourself.
Yes, unmuted. Sorry about that. So just a little bit more on the JetBlue side. You know, JetBlue is, you know, basically a Northeast based airline where we fly up and down the coast. We do our transcons, and you know, when I want to bring it really to what we've been dealing with in the last few months, to where we took an airline who was flying really hard. It could have been 12 hours a day, taking one tail and flying it, to now taking it to a point where it was 3 hours a day or 4 hours a day. And, from a tech ops point of view, the worst thing to do really is not fly that machine. And we took the machine and we put it down. But at the same time, we took this as an opportunity for our techs, one, to learn a little bit more on the airplane, and two, to get a little bit more done on the airplane. So we were able to actually take advantage of this downtime to where, other airlines, and I'm not putting down any other airlines, but we took the opportunity to actually clean up our fleet and actually put some mods on our fleet and really make the fleet ready and very versatile to where we could fly it anywhere. And as we went into this pandemic, a lot of folks were in a position where just park fleets and park airplanes and park. We took a different approach. Yes, we did park, but at the same time, we wanted to keep the fleet alive and ready. And that means keeping it airworthy, keeping it warm, making it sure it's ready to fly. And whatever mission, the marketing folks are going to put it on, that's what we wanted to be ready for. And as we did this, our business partners, they were suffering from COVID as well. And next thing you know, heavy checks were starting to suffer. So we ended up bringing work in-house and taking some of the burden off our business partners. And that gave us the opportunity to not only give a little more wrench time for our folks, but at the same time, keep our folks working, keep them involved, keep them focused. And it really, really worked out well. And from a tech standpoint, and we have a lot of younger folks coming straight out of school, it was the best time of all for us because we made the best out of it. Because now we had a lot of folks that didn't really have that much experience. Now coming out of the pandemic, they're going to have a lot of experience. So, as I listen to the audience that's on this call, and there's a lot of young folks trying to get through school, and you're hearing people, furloughing, people, taking long-term off because there's not much work out there. But airplanes got to fly. And when this pandemic does lift, the airplanes will fly. And there'll be a lot of opportunities. Because looking around, I've been in the industry over 30 years. I started as a tech and worked my way through the ranks. There's always work to be done. It's just, where is it going to be done? You just got to be able to move to where that work is going to be. But we will end up in a really great place coming out of this pandemic, meaning our fleet will be ready to fly any mission wherever the demand is. And that's where we really have to be innovative and creative, to where I have techs all over the United States. So we kept the airplanes positioned in those corners. So really keep the interest, keep the minds working, and just look for different ways how you can maximize time when situations come up like this, because that's what the team did here at JetBlue. And we're really going to come out in a great place. And I thank Ben for his presentation, because it is really reality, where all of a sudden you're flying really hard and all of a sudden you have to take your fleet down by over 50%. And in some cases it went over 70%. And what do you do with all these airplanes? One day you wake up and you have 175 airplanes needing a place to go park for a few months. And we reacted, and we reacted very well. And the team really put it together by being innovative, open-minded, and really the love of the industry. So I thank you, Aviv, for the invite, and hopefully I could spread a little bit of love out there for the mechanics and the techs who want to advance into this field, because it's treated me very well in the past 30 years. And it's going to be a great industry to come. And as we come out of this, how we clean airplanes, how we maintain airplanes, it just gets that much better because we had an opportunity to breathe right now. So thank you, Aviv. I pass it back to you.
Thanks, Bill. I'll be remiss if I didn't mention the visionary behind JetBlue, which is David Neilman, who we honored 3 years ago with the Juan Tripp Award at the GMAA Gala, which, by the way, the winner of last year Juan Tripp Award is no other than Mr. Lester Sola. And we do have a gala we owe you, Lester, so hopefully that's going to happen sometime soon. Luciano, same question to you, and maybe you could, just like Bill, maybe you could go and tell us about up to 2020 and then the transition and evolution of what has happened, you know, in 2020, which was unlike any other year in the history of aviation.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Aviv. Good afternoon to you and to everyone. I also want to thank Lester, PJ, Ben, and Bill, and of course, the almost 100 participants we have on the call right now, right? If it weren't for them and for the interest, we wouldn't be here on this panel. So if you want me to go into 2020, we could be here probably for a month talking about everything that went on in 2020, right? It has without a doubt been the most challenging period in aviation history. And I say this and mean this for everyone, from airlines, all airlines around the globe, airports, business, even cargo. Despite how it's been said, there's a lot of cargo. Business cargo has been quite good from a yield perspective. There's not enough capacity for all the cargo around the world, so even cargo has been challenged. And of course, even all of the participants and our customers around the globe have been challenged with the fact of not being able to fly, which is something we're so accustomed doing, and we all, of course, love doing. So it's really been challenging for everyone across the industry. If I had to summarize it in 2-3 minutes in terms of how we at Delta Airlines lived up to the challenge, I'd probably describe it in 3 phases. The first one being just putting the airline to rest. Which, if you think of 1,000 aircraft airline, 87,000 employees in operation, our own and through our partners all over the globe, you can imagine how challenging that is, right? So really, it's putting the airline to rest, understanding what we were up against, and ultimately aligning towards a unique goal, which was continuing to guarantee safety as the #1 priority for our people and our customers, only now taking safety into perhaps a different interpretation, right? It's not just operational safety with which we and the entire industry, frankly, has been committed to forever, but more of health safety surrounding, of course, this pandemic. In regards to that, we've done dozens of things, from launch our what we call our Delta Care Standards, which is everything from the way we do cleaning to launching it, electrostatic sanitizing across every single aircraft and on every single turn all over the world. It's redefining our boarding processes. It's mandating masks on board. It's regulating regular testing and temperature checks for our employees, guaranteeing that we were also keeping our customers safe while traveling, to blocking middle seats, which, by the way, we continue to do today, and at this point we will continue doing at least throughout March. Also setting up our own very own team of cleanliness that revises all of our cleanliness and sanitation processes for the airline, and of course for customers, and of course for our employees, to our partnership with Mayo Clinic, CDC, and of course working in close partnerships with the airports, among them, of course, Lester's team at Miami Airport, with whom we've had an amazing partnership in guaranteeing safety also for our customers traveling in and out of Miami. Add to that a heavy component on communication, because of course all this needed to be shared, a lot of change, and if you haven't traveled from March to today, I promise you're in for quite a change when traveling. It's a complete different experience, one that guarantees this level of health safeness, to even, putting communication around busting some myths, like what air is aboard an aircraft. I think all of us airlines were exposed early on this myth of being enclosed in an aircraft and how dangerous it can be because of the air. Nonsense. The air inside an aircraft is as healthy of an air, as clean of an air as there can be, comparable only to the air in surgical rooms within hospitals, thanks to our HEPA filters, recirculation of air, and among other things that make really the air on board be very, very safe. All that we call, let's say, safe phase #1, which is getting ready for this, right? In phase #2, call it third quarter of last year, it was really all about restructuring the operation, restructuring our organization in all of its forms, really setting up for a different reality, and one that by that point we knew would accompany us for a while, which resulted in grounding of hundreds of aircraft, anticipating fleet retirement decisions, and unfortunately saying goodbye to over 20,000 employees at Delta Airlines who voluntarily took retirement or exit packages. And now, fast forwarding into phase #3, which is where we stand today, really continuing to execute all of our Delta Care Standard protocols, guaranteeing flying aboard Delta is safe, staying very close to our customers and what they need, listening to what they need, whether it's a continuation of our safety protocols, slowly expanding our network where we see demand, increasing flexibility, of course, that customers can feel good about purchasing, and if need, they can also knowing that they can cancel or change their travel plans. We'll probably be in this phase for some time, Aviv, and really just trying to stay very nimble and very good listeners in terms of what our customers want. Much of what we care today is leisure, true, but we're also staying close to our corporate customers who, like all of us on this call, are eager to travel, and we know they soon will. We know that from our regular conversations. We know that from surveys. So as Ben was saying, this is a very resilient industry. We're going through a lot of challenges, but we will come back and come back strong.
Okay, great. So I think I want to summarize the 2020 subject by saying that looks like you all took the time, I mean, obviously got hit very, very hard, but took the time to make the airlines more efficient, healthier, and ready to operate at great efficiency once we ramp up to new reality with the vaccines and so on. And so I wanted to ask you all to address the question if the COVID-19 pandemic really caused a paradigm shift in the aviation industry as a whole with long-lasting effects. And I'm specifically talking about the short haul versus the long haul, the no-frills flight versus full fare and business class, the wide versus narrow body, etc. And I'd like to start with Ben, please. Ben Barrocas.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. These seismic shifts happen every time the industry goes through one of them. So the industry adapted and changed after 9/11, after bankruptcy during the mid-2000s, after the Great Recessions. We adapted and we changed our business models and we adapted to the current reality. Will things change? Absolutely. I mean, beginning with what Luciano mentioned on how to biosafety, on the check-in process, which is really actually a challenge now that Lester can attest to, where a lot of the check-in process is now taking place at the counter. We've taken it back almost 30 years. But yeah, the industry is going to adapt. Networks will change. The network planners now have the opportunity basically to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't have to fly out of a hub. Maybe we can go point to point. So we're starting to see a lot of that. We talked about it even before we opened the call, how a lot of these carriers are flying point to point where we didn't think we realized that would happen before in the past. For example, Alaska and other airlines. Back to you.
Thank you. Connie, can you hear me? Connie, please keep everybody on the panel unmuted for the duration, okay?
I am not touching anything, Aviv.
Okay, so everybody on the panel unmute yourself just in case. All right, I want to ask Bill same question about the paradigm shift and what do you think are long-lasting effect of the pandemic on your airline and in general the aviation industry?
I mean, we're constantly looking at that, and obviously safety being our number one attribute, and it's our focus. So, cleaning of the cabins, knowing what the airplane is going to be doing, how it's recirculating air. Is there a better filter? Is there something that much better coming out of? Teaming up with Honeywell, looking at ultraviolet cleaning. It's just different ways of trying to get the best product out there. And we've done that from, not selling middle seats, but, obviously you cannot go on forever like that. We do have to put people on the airplane, but we are looking at state-of-the-art cleaning of what is that long-lasting disinfectant that's not going to be able to spread something. And that's how we're going to come out of it with a clean product, with a reliable product, and something where, our customer is going to feel in a space where they feel safer in that space than even outside the airplane. And that's the ultimate goal, to make it that much better of an experience. So, as we come into this year and going into the years to come, I really see not only the airline industry changing, but it's going to be really everything around us, because it's going to be different cleanliness. It's going to be a different way. Me being from New York, getting on a subway is a different experience of what it was a year ago, right? So everything's changing around us in the culture, and it's, is it going to be face masks forever? But I'm not going to say it's going to be forever, but it's going to be something that's going to be for the long term. I don't see that going away. Years back, I used to manage Asia when I was at American Airlines, and face masks over in Asia was really second nature. It wasn't even a question. So I think where we're going and how we come out of this, our culture will change to that, to where a face mask will be a second nature. Will be something that's going to be not only a requirement, but it's going to be in our culture. So that's where I see we're going to be.
Yeah, agreed. PJ, same question.
So, just like Bill said, we're obviously working and looking at different ways that we can disinfect and put a cleaner, safer product out there. We currently use the electrostatic method, which has done great for us. It works well. It's pretty easy to do. It's quick. So we've got clean planes. We're ready to fly. I think we're in a really good standpoint as a comparison to others. Is we didn't have a huge international flights. We were mainly a domestic carrier, and that kind of put us in a good spot, because it looks like that there's still leisure travelers out there. They're flying. Business travel has pretty much ceased to exist. But kind of back like 2011, 2000, excuse me. Back when the bombings happened and the planes were hijacked. We stopped flying for a few days. Everybody thought business travel was going to stop altogether. We had to change. We had to learn from that. Security measures were taken, but we got through it, and the demand returned. People are flying again. Business travel has become a thing. So I like Bill said, we're going to have to adapt and overcome it. It's going to happen. This industry is resilient. We'll get through it, and we'll be on the other side, waiting to fly whoever wants to fly.
Thank you. And Luciano?
Yeah, so I think, frankly, the only thing that I think is going to be long-standing is our focus on cleanliness, really. If you look at today, our NPS has gone from what was already a record in the 40s a year ago to now in the 70s. That means our customers are telling us that everything we're doing now are the right things. That is certainly not going away. Regarding everything else, I don't think anything is long-standing, not in this ever-changing industry. To your point on travel behavior, yes, today there's more short-haul travel than long-haul, distant international travel. Likely it'll be that way for some time. But we know, we know from our customers that the longer away they are from home, the more hesitant they are to travel today. But that won't be forever. Travel is not something we're going to get accustomed to not doing, right? I can't really talk about timing, but I just look at my own and everyone on this call's sentiment, and I don't think anyone can foresee a future with less travel, a future with dramatically different travel. I mean, who's not going to be doing business in person with someone around the world in the future at some point? Of course we will, and those things will necessarily come back for certain. But to our previous point, this is an ever-changing industry. Things will change and will continue to change. And nothing's forever in this industry, which is really what makes it such a beautiful and fun industry in many ways.
Yeah, and Lester, I mean, Miami International Airport is such a hub for people who are transiting from overseas to destinations within the the United States. And that segment of business has suffered quite a bit, more so than any other segment. I'm talking about international flights, also because of restrictions that, other countries have had, and now restrictions that the current administration and when I say current administration, I guess I'm talking also about the Biden administration, are going to instill just in order to protect the public from all those new mutating strains of the pandemic. And so can you talk about the same question, but from the viewpoint of, the CEO of an airport that's primarily an international airport?
Right. So not to repeat what others have said, but the resiliency, the constantly having to evolve, and whether it be an industry or a business, you have to see what's going on and adapt. So we as an airport, obviously took significant measures in disinfecting areas, cleaning areas, plexiglass installations, everything that you've seen in images and interviews. So, but I will tell you this. The fact that MIA is a gateway, and it's not just for leisure travel, it's for business, for people who have second homes here. We are a point of entry, South America, Latin America, Central America, the Caribbean, that people choose to come and use this airport, not just because they're going to continue to their travel someplace else, but they may have a second home here. Their kids may be going to school here. So for us, the customer mix is very different. So I believe that our recovery will continue, and yes, has business adapted with virtual calls like we are on today. But when your competitors, when you're in a competitive business and your competitors are doing in-face interviews, conversations, business transactions, you as a business will have to adapt to that as well too. So you are going to have to feel comfortable. You're going to have to review and buy into and believe in what the airport is doing, what the airlines are doing, and you're going to feel safe again. And in fact, Ben mentioned it right when we got over our first wave in the summer. Our bookings into the MIA market, into our area here, really started to increase significantly. In fact, the Hotel Association was very happy. It was only after the world started becoming more of hotspots all over the place, and there was very little communication and education as to how the airports were handling that journey, how the airlines were handling the journey, making sure that people felt secure, that the bookings fell again. So we see now with the vaccines, the education, the filtration system, that we constantly have to deliver a message of that it is in fact safe to travel. And then those passengers, whether it be business or people who are for leisure or trying to meet their friends and family, will come back. We believe that.
Yeah, and Aviv, and if you let me just build a little bit on top of what Lester just said, I mean, I second everything he said. Zoom is awesome, but I think it's the new normal for telephone calls. It's not the new normal for aviation. I mean, everything we've done over this past over this past few months, over video conferencing, really takes for granted relationships that we built over decades, over years. I mean, who has created any new meaningful relationships over these past few months, right? Probably nobody, very few people. When you think about business, unless you are in a business that's completely driven by price, which we're probably not flying in the past anyway, you're not going to win any new business unless you're going to be there in person until, like Lester said, your competitor is there closing that deal over dinner. That's the point in time in which you will necessarily go back to travel. And that's a fact, I believe. Yeah.
I want to switch away from talking about the doom and gloom of 2020 and the pandemic. And I want to ask each and every one of you about new trends, new innovations that are under development in our industry. And tell me, what is it that excites you? I mean, when I look at, at our industry, and I've been in this industry for 30 years, some of you, Ben for sure also, we've seen so much that has changed over the years. And now we're talking about supersonic flights. We're talking about so many other innovations that are exciting. Can you, Ben, start us off by telling us what is it that excites you about the future of our industry?
Overall, I think it's like my colleagues, counterparts have said before, it's just going to be a better industry. We're going to provide better service. We're going to have better connectivity. We'll bring back the connectivity that it had before. Technology will play a key role, particularly in the check-in process. you know, us as an association where we set standards and products, we're working with the airline industry. The airlines have asked us to develop and come up with a bio app we call the IATA travel app, where you can check in with the app that's tied into the airline's check-in process, where it'll tell you that you're good to go in terms of that you've been tested, you're negative. You can put your travel documents in there, your passport. So it will be a seamless process from the time that you check in and go all the way to the airplane. So what excites me really is the technology that's going to come out of to improve this business as an industry from the passenger perspective, but also for the airline as well.
Thank you. Same question, Lester?
So I'll double down on that. The technology, biometrics, right? The new TSA checkpoints technology is being used so that we remove the touch points, right? Those pinch points that our customers have basically have associated with travel. This pandemic and this situation that we were in forced us, just like we forced us into virtual meetings, has forced the industry to look at technology to solve some of those touch points so that people feel more comfortable. But we yield a benefit from that technology because it improves the bottom line. You had the airline industry basically refresh its fleet, right? They got rid of some of the airplanes. That forces the airport to adapt in our capital program so that we have more and more consistent airplanes and the gate utilizations of the airport. So I think it's forced everyone a couple of decades forward as to how we're going to run this industry into the future.
Yeah, and I think, Lester, from your perspective, you don't have to struggle anymore preparing your airport for heavy aircraft like A380. You know, I think that's gone. We're not going to see those super jumbo jets.
Very much so. That was a big challenge for the airport because we only had 2 gates. And in fact, as part of our capital program, we were looking at basically reestablishing additional gates for the 380, right? So as the fleet become more and more consistent across all these different airlines, it makes it easier for an airport to adapt so that we can accommodate more and more carriers.
Right. Luciano, can you answer the same question, please?
Yeah, and you know, biometrics were mentioned. Certainly, it's a big thing here. And while that favors strongly in the current scenario, it's also worth stating that it began for us well ahead of this pandemic. Already in 2018 and 2019, we were rolling out biometric terminals in our main hubs and had plans to expand that, which we will, of course, continue doing. Curb to seat, touchless, an efficient process is very welcome today in today's world, but and it will continue to be in post-COVID. But like I said, it began well ahead of this, really because of the benefit of convenience it has for customers, particularly those who travel the most. Our CEO at Bastion was shared already in early 2019 at CES, which is the #1 technology event across the world, what the future of travel for us looked like. It involved everything from giving our people state-of-the-art technology to have a more access and a friendlier service for our customers. It involved faster Wi-Fi, which, by the way, we're already rolling out. Last week, we announced a new partnership with Viasat, which is the #1 service provider, and will provide broadband and the best Wi-Fi service aboard our aircrafts, to personalized flight entertainment, biometrics in terminals, like has already been said. Other things that we're already using, like antimicrobial LED lights in laboratories, for example. That's technology that already existed, but it's now just making its way in the fast lane into this industry because, of course, of the current needs and the current desires of our customers. And it's really exciting what technology can do for travel, and particularly for me, you know, being in a company that is committed to being first to action with all of it.
Thank you. I want to actually jump to the last question, and I think an extremely important question to our younger listeners. We have many students, dozens of students with us today from the various colleges and technical colleges and universities that are enrolled in aviation programs. And I ask you guys, you know, based on your experience, based on your many years in the industry, what advice would you give these youngsters, how to assist them in making inroads in the aviation industry? And PJ, if you will, let's start with you.
So I think one of the most important things is to be very flexible. To look at opportunities you have and definitely weigh your options. This is a very fluid industry. I think this past year it shows that very much. I've been lucky enough to live in numerous states, work for a few different airlines, worked for a cargo carrier, and that's put me where I am today. Is taking those opportunities, weighing them, and trying to make the best decision I could for myself at the time. I was very lucky when I went to school at Embry-Riddle, and I had a roommate. His father was actually the head of aviation for British Petroleum. So me and him became very close, and I've always had him to reach out to. Having an expert like that in the aviation field has been a great benefit to me. I've called him in every career transition I've made, and I always laugh is he never likes to answer your question. He likes to answer your question with more questions, but it makes you think. It makes you look at your opportunity a different way. You weigh the pros and cons, and you decide if that's going to be the right choice for you. It's not about making a decision, it's about the ride. So that's I think that's the most important thing. Like I said, this industry can be very fluid, and you got to be flexible and weigh your options and pick what's best for you.
Thank you. Bill, same question.
Okay. Really, everybody really hit it as far as biometrics, eliminating touch points. And, like I always talk to the crew members, we have to be innovative at a time like this, meaning if it is with a business partner and they're trying to develop some kind of robotic technology to go down the aisle and shoot some ultraviolet light on top of seats and just eliminating more touch points and keeping our crew members that much safer. So really my advice is really keeping the open mind, looking for that new technology, looking for that opportunity to bring something that much better to the place, not only improving the experience for the customer, but improving the experience for your fellow crew member, to where, if you are gonna, and the biometrics, it was a great example. We had that going into COVID, and you're eliminating that boarding card, or you're eliminating holding that cell phone to scan over a reader, and now you're just walking up and it recognizes your face and you get on an airplane. So keep thinking of what's the next step after that. Or if it is a robot that's going to go down the aisle of an airplane and shooting the ultraviolet light to kill the germs, even that much better. But how much better can we get from that? And what can we learn from that to make that technology that much better? And I think it's just such an exciting time, because it's opening up the opportunity for innovators to come in and just make our industry that much better and that much cleaner, so to speak. So,
I think that Lester, you kind of epitomize what we want to tell our students here, because I kind of know your history, and I know you started as an intern in the aviation department 30 plus years ago, and here you are managing the entire airport. So very interesting and interested in your perspective.
He's in mute jail again.
All right, I'm back.
Okay.
So thank you, Aviv. So the best advice that I can give: perseverance. So I started based in banking, but I wanted always to be in public service. And straight out of graduate school, I joined this county. I could have gone to a couple of other different counties. So I started as a management trainee 29 years ago. And my first assignment was to work at the airport and to assist back then the aviation director. And this is my fourth time at this airport. I've been sent throughout my career to work on special projects at the airport. And throughout that whole time, right, from the very first time, and it's the truth, it's not corny. It's, I fell in love with the fact of everything that happened at the airport, right? Basically, it's a city. You're in partnerships with small airlines, larger airlines, cargo airlines, and never could I have imagined that I would come back as a director, but it was part of the dream that I had, that I wanted to come back. So sticking with a plan, once you've chosen this industry, find a path, find the rising stars, attach yourself to those people that are doing well, and as they rise, you will rise as well too. But you must remain committed to the entire cause and not be overwhelmed by some of the dips and valleys along the way, and just focus on your future.
Thank you. And Ben, and then Luciano, and if we have to go a few minutes over, that's okay as well.
Like PJ, I started my career. I did my undergrad at Embry-Riddle. From there, I worked for 2 separate airlines, TWA and United, and now have been with the Trade Association for about 15 years. It's a passion, and if you start in this industry and it's your passion, you'll never work a day in your life. So if it's this industry or whatever industry you end up in, make sure you follow your passion. It's the same thing I tell my son, who's a pilot. You know, during this crisis, he's shifted one base. He went from national. He's now in Boston, but he's still flying. And that's what I tell everybody who wants to be in this business and continue in this business. Just keep those airplanes flying and stay the course, because it has its ups and downs like any other business that exists out there. But this is probably, I echo Luciano's comments, the most rewarding business and industry you can possibly be in, bar none.
Thank you. Great message. And Luciano.
Yeah, and so just to build on top of what everyone said, which I agree with, I graduated as an engineer, but I've been doing business for over 20 years. Prior to these 10 years I've been in the airline industry, I did consumer goods. And I'll tell you one thing that's very different from any other industry. When I was in consumer goods, and of course, great industry, fun, awesome brands, many conceptually, I like the airline industry in many ways, but our factories, I remember, were, our assets, our factories were placed in one country, and you couldn't move them. You couldn't really adapt too much. Or if you were producing at full capacity, there wasn't really any more challenges, right? Or if you were going through a struggle, you really couldn't do much more than just close down your factories. The beauty about this industry is that our assets, our factories, are actually mobile. Our airplanes, we can move them, we can take them from here to there. So it's this constant thing when you're in the airline business, is that there's never enough. You can never stop. There's always an opportunity to do more, to do it better, to adapt, to change. And that's what really keeps it so dynamic and so much fun, right? So I've been through currency devaluations, volcanoes that have disrupted nations completely from flying. I've intense and very fun competition, which there is, of course, in this industry, and everything up to this year's pandemic, right? There's always a reason for you to really look into your business and continue challenging yourself. And how can you do it better? How can you do it better? How can you do it better? And that's something that I think is unique only to this industry. So I welcome anyone who loves a world of dynamism and just, being things moving fast and constant change and always challenging yourself. I really think this is the industry for anyone who has that mindset, whether it's in the business and the tech ops or any part of it. We're all very committed to really staying up to speed with that level of dynamics that this industry calls for.
Well, what a way to finish our webinar with such a strong message from all our participants. And, to all you young guys out there, it tells you something when people who have been in this industry 20 and 30 years are still so passionate about this industry, still so passionate about the future of the industry. We know we're going to recover and go to new heights. No pun. Oh, yeah, maybe pun intended. I just want to thank everyone. What a fantastic panel. Ben, Lester, Luciano, PJ, and Bill, you've been a wealth of information for us and inspiration for us. I see that during the session, some people have donated, and I thank them for that. If you were so riveted to the webinar that you didn't have time to donate until now, please go ahead and do so. There's no amount that's too small. Everything, 100% of all donations go to the scholarship fund. I want to thank you, everyone. Everyone. Stay tuned. We're going to have some other exciting panels in the upcoming month. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having
Thank
me.
you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Seeing everyone.